Welcome anybody. Today in this video we're going to do a fun little exercise. It's going to be to take this JPEG that I downloaded off the internet and Base64 encode it into a text format, and then we'll redecode it or unencode it back into a JPEG. So let's get started. To start out, we're going to start with the console template, and it has a calls main from its entry point, and that's where we're going to be at. So what we need to do is we need to have some file names, because we're going to have an input file, an output file that's text format, and then when we reconvert it again, it's going to have another output file, which is JPEG again. So I'm going to declare a local variable. I'm going to put it in the data section. So it'll be kind of a static variable. It's going to be a file name object. The file name object is in my runtime. And we're going to name it JPEG file name. The next variable will also be a file name object, and we're going to name it text file name. That'll be the first output file. The third variable will be a file name object. We're going to name it JPEG file name 2. That's when we reconvert it back into a JPEG. Okay. So now we need to create file names. So what we're going to need is the path of the executable, and that comes from the command line. So we're going to invoke, I have another runtime module called command line, which helps us out with this a little bit. It has some code, and it has one function called init, and that basically is just going to call a Windows API to get the command line and then recondition it a little bit, creates a few variables that we're going to use, and most importantly the path of the exe. So to create the JPEG file name, we're going to find some code in that module, or that object, and we have one called new. Now we're not instantiating the object because it's live in program space, so we don't need to instantiate it with the memory manager, and we don't need to kill it. So I think the third one down is what I'm looking for here. It's got the path, file name only, and extension. It's off the screen. And the path is going to be from the command line. Now the command line is not an object module. It's just a regular module. So we did that in init and just wrote some answers into the data section, its own data section. And it has, in its own data section, a file name object. And that file name object has variables. And the one we're looking for is the path. Now the path itself is actually a string variable. But the parameter, which the IntelliSense blinked off, the parameter we're looking for is DW with properties, which is a buffer. But the string variable has a buffer within it. It's one of its variables built in. So text is its buffer. So that's the path. I'm going to bring this back up again. So we're on the third one, the DW with properties named path. Now we're looking for a file name only. So I'm going to hard code that in to what the name of the file name is. It's called the image. and the extension is JPEG. So there's our input file. And instead of retyping that all again, because I need to do this 3 times, I'm just going to copy the line. So the second file name is the text file name, and the third file name is the JPEG file name 2. And the text file name is going to be text. So that's the first output file. It's also going to be the input file for the next step. And I don't want the final one to have the same name as the very first one, because I don't want to overwrite my first input file. So I'm going to call it the image 2. So there's our file names. Now the next thing we need is we need a place in memory to put this data into. What I'm going to use here is like 3 more variables in the local data section, and I'm going to make void objects. These will be, again, static objects. And the first one I think I'll call JPEG void. That'll be the input data. The next void object will be the text void. The next void object will be the JPEG void 2. Now the void objects are really handy because you can, it's basically going to be a malloc of some upper memory that you can just do anything you want with. And it has some support to help us do things. So when we get down here, instead of making a comment, I'm just going to do an echo to the console window. Right, 9, and let's say loading the image, which will be just a matter of reading it into the void. So to read it into the void, I take the JPEG void and I look for some code. I believe load from file is what I want to use. And it takes as a parameter a buffer called path and name, and the optional parameter offset we won't be using. Which means we need a path and name. Well, luckily we've created one. We have the JPEG file name object, and it has some variables in it. And one of the variables is called path and name, which is a string variable again. And that string variable has within it a buffer. The next step, let's just copy this. Save a little typing. I'll copy that one too. Encoding. Now we're going to take, we have our first void filled, and we're going to encode it into the Base64 format. And to do that, we're going to use another runtime module that I have called Base64. And this is a non-object oriented module because it has no instance data, which means I'm going to be accessing it directly through the namespace, the module namespace called Base64, just like I did with the command line. And let's see what code this has. It has 2 functions, decode and encode. So we're going to encode. The parameters are, we got a destination void and a source void. Okay. Well, a destination void, we have them. We have the text void. And the source void is the JPEG void. That should do that. And we're going to want to look at that. So we're going to write out that void to disk. So we'll take the text void, write some code, and write to file looks good. We got two write to files, and one I use for pipes. We won't be using that one. And the other one says, the second one says, I need a path and name. So our path and name is going to be the text file name dot variables dot path and name, and it's a buffer again. Now this dot variables, there is a shortcut to it, by the way. It's kind of a, let's do the shortcut. It's kind of a double dot notation. When you do the double dot notation, you get all the functions, the code, the data, you get everything. You have to know what you're looking for, and I'm looking for the text. And there's that. So we've written out the Base64 version of disk. Now we want to decode that back into a JPEG format. Write a decoding line. And let's use the Base64 module again. It has code, and it's got encode and decode. So we're going to decode two parameters, which wants two voids, a source and a destination. So the destination is going to be the JPEG void 2. That's our third void. The source is going to be the text void. And that should do that. And of course, then we need to write that to disk. Write that last void to disk. Writing to disk. And we're going to go invoke JPEG. Whoa! Invoke the JPEG void 2 code. Write to file. And the file name is JPEG file name 2 dot path and name dot text. That looks good. I should compile that and give that a shot. So I'm going to drag up my little bottom here. And we're going to do a create exe. Let's see what we got. And so I click on create exe. And I run it. Kind of happened real fast. Loading the image, encoding, writing to disk, decoding, writing to disk, press enter. So it kind of really did it fast, but we're going to kind of look at our output files and see what it did. Okay, this is what our JPEG looks like in Notepad++. And it has every character that exists in the binary world. This is our encoded one. It only has 64 characters in it, so it's more of a text base. It's all one great big line. And it's not really readable, but it is text. That's the whole purpose of the Base64. And then the final file, the third one, is the JPEG 2. which should look the same as JPEG 1. As I click back and forth, it does. But the real test is going to be to try to just open it up and see what happens. So here's our working directory. There's the original JPEG. It was 130K. The text was 173K, so it grew some. And here's the final JPEG. I double click on it, and there's our image. So just to recap, we have 3 file names, 3 voids, create the file names, load the data in the first void of the JPEG, encode the data from the first void to the second void. That's our text void. Write the text void out to file, to the disk, then decode the text void back into its original format, into the third void, and then write that to disk. That's our new version of the JPEG. And it worked pretty well. It's a kind of a great technology. And thanks for watching the video. I just watched the video and noticed something I forgot to do. So we did have a working program here, but one thing I forgot to do is to clear my voids. It's kind of good practice, or kind of required to return the memory back to the operating system. So the JPEG void is full of data. So I need to run the .clear. The text void is full of data, so I need to clear that out. And the JPEG void 2 code needs to be cleared as well. Now, technically, when the program ends, the memory will be returned back to the operating system, but it's just kind of a good practice to always be aware of memory leaks. So without clearing those voids out, they're technically full and used. The object exists the entire duration of the program space, but the void object kind of mallocs memory from the operating system that should be removed. And that's it. Thanks for watching.